Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, unraveling the complexities of human history and exploring the intricacies of our collective past. Today, we find ourselves at the threshold of one of the most pivotal and tragic events of the 20th century, the Gallipoli campaign. This ill-fated endeavor, which unfolded during the Great War, would become a testament to the fallibility of human planning and the unyielding ferocity of war. As we delve into this narrative, let us first set our gaze upon the broader canvas of World War I, a conflict that had been raging for nearly a year by the time the Gallipoli campaign commenced. The war, with its complex web of alliances and nationalist sentiments, had already claimed countless lives and reshaped the geopolitical landscape of Europe. It was against this backdrop that the idea of opening a new front in the Dardanelles began to take form. The concept, born out of a desire to alleviate pressure on Russia by threatening the Ottoman Empire's capital, Constantinople, seemed almost romantic in its ambition, a swift and decisive victory that would swing the balance of power in favor of the Allies. The brainchild of Winston Churchill, then First Lord of the Admiralty, this plan envisioned a naval assault that would force the Dardanelles, capture the strategic city of Constantinople, and thereby knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war. As we navigate the months leading up to the campaign, it becomes evident that the seeds of its eventual failure were sown in the discussions and decisions made by Allied leaders. Churchill's enthusiasm for the project was not universally shared. There were voices of caution, most notably from General Ian Hamilton, who would eventually lead the landings, but initially expressed significant reservations about the feasibility of such an operation without substantial ground forces. The Ottoman Empire, far from being the pushover that some Allied strategists believed it to be, had undergone significant modernization efforts under the guidance of German military advisors. The defenses along the Dardanelles were formidable, with well-entrenched artillery positions and a landscape that offered little cover for an invading force. Moreover, the Ottomans had already demonstrated their resilience in repelling earlier Allied naval probes into the strait. In the winter of 1914-1915, as the first plans for the campaign began to solidify, the Allies were unaware of the full extent of the Ottoman preparations. It was a period marked by optimism and a belief in the invincibility of modern warfare technology. The idea that a combination of naval gunfire and infantry landings could overcome any defensive position dominated strategic thinking. As January 1915 gave way to February, the pace of planning accelerated. Churchill's advocacy for the campaign finally won over key opponents, and the decision was made to proceed with both a naval assault and, somewhat belatedly, a significant land component. General Hamilton was tasked with leading this effort, despite his earlier reservations, which were now overshadowed by the momentum behind the operation. The months of March and April 1915 were filled with frantic preparations. Troops from Britain, France, Australia, and New Zealand readied themselves for the unknown challenges ahead. The Anzac forces, in particular, were about to embark on a journey that would define their national identities and forge an enduring legend of sacrifice and valor. As the Anzac forces prepared to embark on their journey, they were filled with a sense of anticipation and uncertainty. The months of March and April 1915 were a time of frantic preparations, with troops from Britain, France, Australia, and New Zealand readying themselves for the unknown challenges ahead. On April 25, 1915, the day of the landings finally arrived, and the Anzac forces set sail for the Gallipoli Peninsula, their destination, the beaches of Anzac Cove. The landing itself was a chaotic and bloody affair, with the Anzac troops facing fierce resistance from the Ottoman defenders. The terrain proved to be a significant obstacle, with steep cliffs and rocky outcrops making it difficult for the troops to establish a foothold on the beach. Despite these challenges, the Anzac forces managed to secure a tenuous hold on the beach, and over the course of the day, they began to push inland, establishing a fragile perimeter. As the days turned into weeks, the Anzac forces found themselves engaged in a brutal and relentless struggle against the Ottoman defenders. The terrain proved to be a major factor, with the steep cliffs and rocky outcrops making it difficult for either side to gain a decisive advantage. The fighting was intense and often hand-to-hand, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. One of the most significant events of the campaign occurred on May 19, 1915, when the Ottomans launched a massive counterattack against the Anzac positions. The attack was repelled, but at great cost, with over 10,000 Ottoman troops killed or wounded in a single day. This event marked a turning point in the campaign, as it became clear that the Ottomans were determined to defend their territory at all costs. As the summer months wore on, the campaign became increasingly bogged down, with both sides dug in and refusing to yield. The heat was oppressive, and disease began to take its toll on the troops, with dysentery and other illnesses becoming rampant. Despite these challenges, the Anzac forces continued to hold their ground, and in August 1915, they launched a major offensive against the Ottoman positions at Lone Pine. The Battle of Lone Pine was one of the most brutal and intense of the campaign, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Anzac forces eventually emerged victorious, but at great cost, with over 2,000 troops killed or wounded in just a few days. As the campaign drew to a close, it became clear that the Allies had failed to achieve their objectives, and on December 20, 1915, the decision was made to evacuate the Anzac forces from the Gallipoli Peninsula. The evacuation itself was a major undertaking, with over 80,000 troops needing to be removed from the peninsula. The operation was carried out under the cover of darkness, with the troops being withdrawn in stages over the course of several nights. It was a delicate and complex process, but ultimately successful, with the majority of the Anzac forces being safely evacuated by January 9, 1916. As the last of the Anzac forces departed the Gallipoli Peninsula on January 9, 1916, they left behind a scarred landscape and a legacy that would forever be etched in the annals of history. The campaign's failure had significant consequences for the Allied powers, as it marked a major setback in their efforts to capture Constantinople and knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war. The British government, in particular, faced intense criticism for its handling of the campaign, with many questioning the wisdom of launching such an ambitious operation without adequate planning or resources. In the years that followed, the Gallipoli campaign would become a defining moment in the history of several nations, including Australia and New Zealand. For these countries, the campaign marked a coming of age as they transitioned from being British colonies to independent nations with their own distinct identities. As Australian historian Charles Bean once said, "The Gallipoli campaign was a baptism by fire for the Australian nation, and it was in those fiery depths that the Australian character was forged." The bravery and sacrifice of the Anzac forces during the campaign have become an integral part of Australian and New Zealand folklore, with April 25th, the day of the initial landing, being commemorated as Anzac Day. The legacy of the Gallipoli campaign extends far beyond the shores of the peninsula, however. It marked a significant turning point in the development of modern warfare, as it highlighted the importance of combined arms operations and the need for careful planning and preparation. The campaign also saw the introduction of new technologies, such as tanks and aerial reconnaissance, which would play a major role in shaping the course of future conflicts. Today, the Gallipoli Peninsula is a place of pilgrimage for many, with thousands of visitors flocking to the region each year to pay their respects to the fallen soldiers. It serves as a reminder of the devastating consequences of war and the importance of diplomacy and international cooperation in preventing such conflicts from arising in the first place. As we look to the future, it is essential that we learn from the lessons of Gallipoli and work towards creating a world where such tragedies are never repeated. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.